Hey everyone, I am just going to go over the literature review with you really quickly. So to make sure that you kind of understand, before you start this video, I want you to take a minute and I want you to go to this week's module and just read over the literature review prompt. It is lengthy, but read over the prompt, read over the rubric, because I'll be referring, the rubric is super detailed, but make sure you go over these things because then the presentation that I'm about to present will make a lot more sense. So make sure that you do that and then we will get started. So the literature review, what is it? Well, you've come from the background essay, which is where you are bringing your readers up to date on what the popular idea and scholarship and the stuff that's happened up until now is. Now you want to look very specifically at what the academic world, people who study this thing for a living, says about your topic. So that's what the literature review is for. It's very different and it is not an annotated bibliography. So I'm going to make sure that you know the differences by the time you're done here. The literature review is a 4 to 5 page document. It's in APA format. The breakdown, the library day, we have Thursday, February 22nd. The first draft is due in a week, Thursday, March 3rd, and the final draft is due Wednesday, March 7th. And the literature review is going to consist of an introduction. And if you look at your prompt, you'll notice that it's really super detailed on what that introduction needs to include. A summary of the scholarly sources, a discussion and evaluation of the sources, and a conclusion in which you put forth your own potential original research questions that will contribute something to the new conversation. This conclusion is kind of the jumping off point of your original research argument, which is the third paper in this series. If you remember, you're building this 15-page paper. You've done a third of it with a background essay. This is that next third of it. And it's all leading up to your own argument. So it's a different kind of research where you are spending a couple of papers figuring out what other people have said so you can come up with your own informed opinion. And it can be really hard. And as fair warning, you might feel like you're repeating yourself a lot in the literature review, and that's okay. Just, be okay with it. So, what is a literature review? Well, let's talk about what it's not. It's not a standard essay, so this is a very different kind of essay than one you're used to doing. It is usually part of a larger paper, which yours is eventually going to be part of a larger paper. So it's usually not a standalone project, although I'm having you do it here just for the purpose of chunking our big paper out. You do not state or prove your main point. Basically, you're just presenting what other people have said. You get to prove your main point in your original research article. And it is not an annotated bibliography, not at all. So make sure you keep that in mind. You're not going source by source here. What it is, it goes over major works that have been published about your narrowed topic. So it's taking into account all of those major works. So you have to do some research to see what are the major works that have been published about your narrowed topic. It reviews those works and gives readers a snapshot. So it goes over the major concepts of the major works, the main points, and what people need to know to bring them up to speed about the major works. But the most important thing is it takes those major works and it looks at the relationships between these snapshots. So what do they have in common? What's missing? What further stuff needs to be done? What is the thing that they share or don't share? So, or what do they say? What are the nuances? You're taking a look at all those relationships. The purpose of this, so why on earth would you ever do this? It sounds like a total pain. I get it. Number one is to improve your own understanding of the literature of what's gone on until now. It's also to demonstrate your knowledge. So it is incredibly difficult to create a persona, a writing persona that is authoritative. And one way of being authoritative and authority on the subject is to prove your knowledge by demonstrating that you know the stuff, you know what's gone on up until now. It's also to bring your reader up to date, to fill them in. And you can do that because you have the knowledge to fill them in accurately with what they need to know. So that's another purpose of this. All right. How to organize this. Organizing your literature review is usually where people get stuck. And because you don't, in an annotated bibliography, you go source by source, right? So one source, you do a summary of it. You don't do that here. You organize your literature review by a specific organizational structure. So you may organize it chronologically, maybe by date, decade, or timeline. So you're going to have your introduction and you're going to have your conclusion, and then in between those you might have several different decades where you talk, if you're talking about the legal structures of juries in America, you might have a section on the inception of juries in America, and then what happened in the late 1800s in America, you might have a section there. And in each section you're going to talk about what the different sources said about that thing. So it's a little bit different. It's different in that you aren't just going source by source. Source 1 said this, source 2 said this, source 3 said this. You're doing it a little bit differently. You may focus on advancements. So from beginning to present, the major advancements in the field. If you're doing DNA technology, you're not going to go decade, by decade. You're going to start with the first big thing in DNA technology, and then the next big advancement, and then the next big advancement. And in each section, you're going to take information from different sources. If it's geographical, you're going to organize it maybe by area. If you're looking at juveniles tried as adults, you might look at what's going on in Florida. And then you might look at what's going on in Oregon State, and then the state of Oregon, and then you might look at what's going on in Indiana. So what usually happens here is that you get all of these sources, and after you review the sources, it becomes very, very clear that an organization, what kind of organizational structure you should use, because these same geographical areas keep coming up, or these same advancements keep coming up, or these same specific laws come up. And you might have an organizational structure that isn't listed here. These are just the most common. Sometimes you have the same questions that researchers are trying to answer, and they come up with different answers, or even slightly different but similar answers. You can pick an organizational structure that works best for you. You can't pick one until you go through the research. And that's what's tricky about this, because you have to do the research first and then start organizing. And you can't write the stupid thing until you have an organizational structure. So it's a little bit tricky here, but just try not to get too caught up on that. For the structure, I have a different video where I go over this outline, but the outline, oh, hold on a minute. I'm going to show you. Hold on just a second. There is, in the course modules, there is this literature review outline. And this is just an overview of different ways you can organize your literature review. But in this video, it's another video, I'm going to link to it. In this video, I go over like what this means and how you can organize this without wanting to truly just rip your face off. So I'll go over that, but keep in mind there is an outline. It is helpful for some. So the writing process, what do we do here? First thing you do, you collect research. We're going to be going to the library. I want you to gather scholarly articles and book chapters. You need academic sources here, and academic sources mean things from academic journals, potentially things from trade magazines, book chapters in an edited scholarly book. Collect more than you need. You need 5 sources here. I would suggest you collect at least 10. Because you're going to do this next thing where you're going to start weeding them out. And at first, seriously, just collect them. Just collect them, read them over, like read over the titles, see if they sound good. Collect. Then you analyze. First thing there, do not read them. Just scan the titles, take a look at the abstract, scan the headings, scan that intro and conclusion to see if they could possibly be useful. It's going to be hard to know if this is the source for you, but it's really easy to see what won't work. So in this analyze section, it's you weeding stuff out, getting rid of the stuff you don't need. So you collect ruthlessly and then you analyze ruthlessly. You collect, you get the stuff, analyze, you toss out the stuff you don't need. Then when you have a stack of potentially good sources, you start reading them. And then arrange. Figure out what kind of pattern happens with your sources. Make an outline by organizational pattern. And then you summarize and synthesize. Summarize the literature, pull together the connections between the literature and make them clear to your reader. That's synthesize. We'll be talking about this a lot more in class, but keep in mind that that's what you're going to be doing here. The next couple days, though, you're going to be focusing on these next two. Scholarly articles usually have the following sections. They have a title, an abstract. They have an introduction where they usually introduce the problem. They have a literature review themselves, and they go over the purpose for the study they did, the rationale, and then their working hypothesis. Big section on the methods they use to obtain their data, the results from that data, and a discussion of what those results mean. So that's what you're going to be looking at. You're going to be looking at those different sections in scholarly articles. And that's what I really want you to keep in mind, is you're collecting and look at those different sections and see what it is that they mean. Now, one thing is I am going to be posting a link to this YouTube video, Literature Review Class Feedback video. I did this for another class, but it really goes in detail over that outline and different ways you can organize it. So I want you to watch this. It's 9 minutes and 24 seconds of your life. This is an assignment that I want you to do. I'll post that assignment, but the reason I'm having you do this is because it goes over different ways to organize a literature review and my different sections to have in there. So make sure that you watch it, and if you have any questions, just let me know. So you'll have the two assignments, watch this and watch the literature review class feedback video. And again, if you have any questions, please let me know. Have a good day.